Well, Derek, I know you're always a busy man. I know this time of year in particular is especially, or I would assume it's especially busy. So thank you for coming down here and taking the time. We very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is, if you work in sports, especially in baseball, as you prepare for opening day, this is the most exciting time of the entire year.
It absolutely is. We feel it. I know fans feel it. We see it online. Victoria and I do on the socials, and it's just the best. I love it, especially as we're taping this. We're a week away. This is coming out the day before. So it's like, for me, it's like Christmas Day every year. Even as a 40-year-old man, I'm like, oh, this is better than Christmas.
Yeah,
so we're so
absolutely. And I just love the traditions behind opening day. You hear especially from fans that have been coming to opening day as a tradition of their family in many cases for years and years and years. You hear all these stories about, I've attended every opening day for the last 30 years or whatever it is. And just hearing the stories behind that and all that goes into it, the emotion behind that, it's special.
It absolutely is. So this is my 11th year with the Braves, which, man, that has flown by quickly. But every year coming into a new season, there's always a ton of new exciting things to talk about, right? I feel like this year, 2025, this has to be the most, in terms of quantity, things that we have going on that we're excited about. I mean, there's multiple huge things. So we'll dive in. First of all, I want to talk about TV and fans' ability to watch our games, because that has been a huge story for us. It's a huge thing for our fans going into the season. So there's a few different topics there I wanted to dive into, but FanDuel and FanDuel Network streaming, just talk a little bit about that. And for fans who are just now kind of getting checked into the season, what's available to them this year as far as broadcasting goes. Yeah,
this is a confusing topic in some ways. So let's just do a little bit of a reset from where we were versus where we're about to be this season. We've been a part of a regional sports network, in fact, 2 regional sports network for years and years and years. We will be again this year. There's been some rebranding of those that has occurred. In fact, this is now the 3rd rebrand in the past 10 or so years. And so the nomenclature, the way in which people know about where to find us, has changed a lot. There was also a bankruptcy behind the scenes that occurred. And in fact, that bankruptcy has unlocked some things that helps our fans. And that was an opportunity for us in many ways. And let me explain. So the predecessor to the current owner and operator of our regional sports networks went bankrupt. They went through a bankruptcy proceeding. And in this off season, they came out of that bankruptcy. They emerged from that successfully. So they're reformulated. And as part of that, we had an opportunity to work with them on some of the things that we felt were really important for our fans to emerge from that bankruptcy in a better way. We're still part of that contract. And so we still have to operate under the terms of the agreement. But there's some things that we were able to do as part of that. And quite simply, the way in which we looked at it for our fans is to say, what could we do as part of that created more accessibility of our games and our broadcast and our content for our fans? So the reconstituted regional sports network is now going to be called and has been called FanDuel Sports Network. There are still 2 regional sports networks that operate inside of our territory. And so fans will have the opportunity to watch our games on either one of those, depending upon how they get it. And if you subscribe to a broadcast or to your channels via an existing distributor, meaning like a Comcast or perhaps your satellite TV that gets FanDuel Sports Network, you will be able to watch us. But this year new is we've unlocked streaming as part of this deal. And so the way in which a fan can watch our games now includes not only going through your traditional carrier of that content. Some of you were able to do that and some weren't. But now all fans have the opportunity to receive the streaming package as part of this. So in effect, you'll be able to stream FanDuel Sports Network into your home, your device, what have you, for the first time. So one way to really sort of simplify this and make this really easy is there's about 10% of the United States population that lives within our territory. It's about 34, 35 million people. Now, for the first time, theoretically, all 35 million people can watch our games, whether it be through their existing regional sports network offering, FanDuel Sports Network, or whether it be through this streaming opportunity. In addition to that, we also created opportunities so if you don't have either one of those, you're not signing up for streaming and you're not getting that FanDuel Sports Network, we're taking a small number of games, 15 during the regular season, and creating what's called a simulcast. So those 15 games, in addition to those first two places where you can find us, you'll also be able to watch us on Gray Media. So we've layered the Gray Media deal into this. So depending upon where you are inside of our territory, in Atlanta, it'll be Peachtree TV. In other markets outside of Atlanta, you'll be able to watch that. So all of this is all on our website. You'll all be able to sort of look at that. We're trying to create very simplified directions dependent upon where you live inside of the territory. Of course, outside the territory, different rules. You'll still have to, if you want to watch all of our games, you have to subscribe to MLB.TV's package, which you can do.
Yes, and we have, for our Braves fans listening, like on Brave Socials, we've put some graphics up on our X account, on our Instagram account. They're pinned, and they are as simple as you can make it. It's how to watch. Braves.com/programming. That's another, as Derek mentioned there, the website you can go to. So the good news is that there are an abundance of options for folks this year. And I did want to ask a little bit more about the Gray Media deal, because I think that's been such a huge thing. We're already seeing it in spring training because we've been able to watch more. I think Braves fans are being able to watch more spring training games than maybe ever before.
Correct.
And that's been really cool. And then the other thing around that is there's been some other ancillary extra programming that's around these games. So there's been some really cool celebrating 95 teams. Of course, this is the 30-year anniversary of the 95 World Series team. So there've been some really cool highlight packages with that.
Yep.
A project that's near and dear to my heart. I get to work with Charlie Myers, our wonderful filmmaker, does the Behind the Braves spring documentary series every year.
Does a great job.
He is amazing, and he and his crew, this is their first season. I just told him yesterday, I'm like, I don't know how you guys, I swear this is not recency bias, you guys top yourselves every year, and they really do. So we love that it does well on YouTube. We love it there. But there was something so cool for me personally and all of us that are involved with that to be able to flip on Peachtree here in Atlanta on Friday night and watch Behind the Braves on there. So that was something else I wanted to touch on was the other programming that's possible as a result of this deal.
Yeah. So again, one of the other things that we've unlocked as part of this renegotiation that we had was the ability not only to do these simulcast deal with Gray, but also as part of that, we can take what I'll call ancillary programming, all the other stuff, not the Braves broadcasts themselves, the actual televised games, but all the other stuff. And we can put those out into the marketplace in all kinds of new and different ways. So starting with spring training, we actually have some live games that we did with Gray. We had 10 live games exclusive to them throughout the territory that they've been broadcasting. Also, 7 FanDuel Sports Network games are done during the spring training season. And then, of course, we do a stream of all of the rest of our games. So for the first time ever, you can actually watch all of our games and a couple different ones in new and different ways. And then outside of that ancillary content, all the other things that we do, we're trying to layer on and trying to create, opportunities for our fans to engage with our team, to learn more about our players, our organization, how things go, and meet them where they are, in their bedrooms, watching TV or their couch, whatever, and just be able to say, here's the place that you can find more Braves content. Here's what we can do with that. The Behind the Braves is a terrific example of that. In fact, the most recent episode that features, among others, Chris Sale is a really good episode. If you haven't watched that, just came out as we're taping this yesterday. So a lot of good ways, and we're just still exploring. I think, the thing that we're also trying to figure out here is as we have this opportunity is how to innovate and find more ways to create content for our fans.
I would be remiss, too, if I didn't touch on the fact that the Spanish play-by-play that's going to happen on FanDuel Regional Broadcast this year, that's a really cool thing. I mean, we've seen on the marketing side the growth of the Los Bravos brand and how much the great work that's done there. And I think that ties hand in hand with our Spanish audience, that they now have that option this year as well.
Yeah, I would agree. And this actually, like a lot of our broadcasts, goes back to the history, in particular when we were on TBS. For a lot of years, TBS had an SAP feed that accompanied the English feed. And that feed is also going to be with us this year. It didn't exist for a number of years. We were absent from that, but I'm really excited to be able to offer that feed into the marketplace as well this year. We've even had some of our spring training games go on Telemundo and some of the other Gray Media Spanish language stations. So, yeah, there's a lot of other ways that we can bring content, in this case, to some of our Spanish-speaking fans.
And before we move on move on from broadcasting, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I'm a little biased because Ben Ingram and I are buddies, but I do feel like we've got the best. I can't imagine there's a better radio broadcast in Major League Baseball than Ben, Joe, Jay, Chad, and then the guys that kind of come in and fill in for Joe. It's a wonderful broadcast, and it's baseball on the radio is still classic to me.
I would agree. I absolutely love baseball on the radio, always have. I think we have one of the best broadcast teams as a whole, whether it be radio or television. Brandon and CJ on the TV side are primary. Jeff Francoeur does a lot of our games. Tom Glavine does a lot of our games. A number of other alumni, of course. But we have a terrific radio package. And in fact, and this is something that I'm also really proud of, through our partnership with Dickey Broadcasting, we have the largest radio network in all of professional sports. We have well over 170 affiliates located primarily throughout the Southeast, but in many other places as well. So we're able to bring radio broadcasts to more fans than perhaps any other team in all of sports.
I'm glad you mentioned Brandon and CJ, because as a TBS kid that grew up loving Skip and Pete and Joe and Don, I feel like our current crew, especially the four primary there, and as well as Frenchie, are it's like we're in another golden era of our broadcast.
Well, those guys have fun. You watch the broadcast, you listen to the broadcast, everybody's having a good time. Why not? You're covering baseball, so there's a lot of good things that are happening out there, and whether we're winning or losing, those guys are bringing a really entertaining broadcast, whether it be radio or TV, to you.
They absolutely are. So let's talk, speaking of fun, let's talk about the All-Star Game.
Yeah.
So I think I've only been and covered to one All-Star Game before, and it was a wonderful experience years ago in Kansas City, and that opened my eyes to. Leading into that, I was more of a fan that I knew the Derby and the All-Star Game, maybe a little bit of the celebrity softball game. I don't remember if the Futures game was around then, but what I've come to learn since then is, yes, it's the game, yes, it's the Derby, but it's really a multi-day, multi-event event that covers a lot of the city. There's a lot of different things that go along with it. So just how excited are you for that? And then talk about the planning, because there's quite a bit of that goes into this.
Well, we're very excited. We've had excitement since we were originally going to have it in 21. Not that I want to necessarily focus in on that, but certainly that excitement never waned. The little gap that we've had since then, I think, has given us opportunity to think about how to make the All-Star Week and all the activities even better for our fans. So in one regard, it's a plus that we didn't host it then, so that we can actually have more time to plan, more time to think about how to bring a better All-Star Game experience. And I think part of that is also Major League Baseball in those years has done a lot of things to improve the All-Star Week. You mentioned, of course, the primary components are the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game itself, but there's a whole lot of other things that go into this. And one of the great things that MLB has done as part of this is really work with the local team to make sure that it's an Atlanta All-Star Game, not just an All-Star Game that's plopped down in Atlanta, if you know what I mean. And so we get to put our own fingerprints and touches on this, if you will. And a number of those things will be revealed as we get closer to All-Star Game. We want to make sure that all of Atlanta and even the Southeast feels connected to this All-Star Game. It's the one time a year that the sport shuts down, while it's obviously in the season, and showcases its greatest players. We've been fortunate to have a lot of our players showcased in these games over the years. And I'm hopeful that this year we will as well too. But it's a great experience for anybody that's any type of fan, whether you be a Braves fan or any type of Major League Baseball fan. And it is an international event. It's broadcast to hundreds of countries across the world. And it is the true showcase of the game. So we're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to do a lot of things throughout Atlanta, as I mentioned, and really excited about being the host. But to your earlier point, it is a heavy lift. So we've got our staff that are working feverishly on it. We've been doing so for a long period of time. Major League Baseball is excellent to work with. They've got terrific people that are working with us on this, and really excited. We're going to have a number of different cultural events, number of different entertainment components that go side by side with this. We'll have some music. Atlanta's a very music-centric city, so expect to have a lot of music that'll be intertwined to this. and can't wait. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, Braves country should be extremely excited about this. So there's going to be a number of cool things that come along with this. So we finished the All-Star game. We wrap that up in July, and then about a week or two later, we pack up and head to Bristol, Tennessee. So I felt like, again, my bias is showing a little bit here, but I felt like the Braves and Marlins kind of showed the rest of the league what was possible in 2016 with these specialty games, with the Fort Bragg game. That was a once in a lifetime experience. And since being there and working that game, I've been anxiously waiting, like, all right, when are we going to get another crack at one of these kind of special events?
I agree.
And
we held that on Fort Bragg for those that aren't familiar. And, they built a temporary field on a military installation, which is the first time that's ever been done. So that was really cool. One of the greatest flowers, by the way, I've ever seen in a sporting event.
There's none that's matches.
You'd had these Black Hawk helicopters and other military aircraft it felt like they were like 50 feet above your head. So that was really cool.
I was kind of hunched behind home plate in the crowd a little bit with my laptop sitting in a chair, and I felt like those choppers were about to land directly on my head. I know. And it was the best. That feeling was amazing. So
now we get race cars. So now we get the race cars.
Yeah. So behind the Braves listeners, this long-time listener to this podcast, they've heard me talk plenty about my background in NASCAR and growing up in it. So when I heard that the Atlanta Braves were going to play a baseball game at Bristol Motor Speedway, I'm like, well, basically for me, it felt like it was for me personally, because I'm like, if Metallica shows up and plays a post-game concert, then I know this was all just built for me somehow by the gods. But no, I just thought this is such a perfect event. There's so much crossover. There are a lot of, like, I go to NASCAR races, and it's a regular thing. Not even just, I was in Nashville last year. At the NASCAR race, I even texted my boss, Greg Mize, and said, I've counted 4 Strider jerseys, 3 Acuna jerseys since I've been here. I mean, it's like Snit says, Braves country is a real thing. So there's a lot of mutual fans there, let's call it. So how does an event like this, how does this event like that get dreamed up? How does it come to life? And then just talk about how excited you are for it.
Well, first of all, it's August 2nd. It's at Bristol Motor Speedway. For those that aren't familiar, haven't looked at some of the renderings, which I think we have on our website, they're taking, in effect, about half the infield of Bristol Motor Speedway and building, once again, a temporary Major League Baseball field and stands. They'll incorporate some stands that are temporary, but for the most part, you actually get to use the grandstands of Bristol Motor Speedway. So the intent of that, right, is that you're going to have a baseball game not only played in a really cool venue, being Bristol Motor Speedway, but you're going to have a lot of people that have the opportunity to be part of this. There could be some 85,000 people or more that are watching this game live at Bristol Motor Speedway. Should be some music that will also be incorporated with this. Some announcements still to come on that. But we're really excited to be one of the 2 featured teams here. It'll count as an away game for us. It's a home game for our opponent, the Cincinnati Reds. So we'll go play a series with Cincinnati. One of those games we'll head south towards Atlanta, but not quite, over there in Bristol. And really excited about what that's going to be. If you haven't seen some of the promotional stunts we've done as part of this, we had Austin Dillon here in his race car, a Braves branded race car, tear up the outfield, do a bunch of donuts in his car. Some people were asking about that, by the way, and they were like, "How could you let that happen? How could you have? Oh my gosh, you got the season starting right around the corner." And then, if you didn't know this, we actually tear up our field every year. We replace our turf every year to try to create the best possible playing environment for our team. And so the grass that you saw being torn up and driven upon is not the grass that we'll actually play on. We kept that grass down so that we could do this little promotional stunt. But it was funny watching the internet get a little, social media get a little incensed about this whole thing. But look, I think it's going to be really fun. You made point of mentioning how NASCAR community, NASCAR fans are by and large probably more prevalent to be Braves fans, more association there than probably any other team. And I think that's true. That's also true of the drivers. We've had a lot of drivers that have come out of the woodwork saying, I'm the biggest Braves fan there is. We want to be part of this. I saw what Austin Dillon did. And we have a lot of these drivers that come and watch our games, and excited to have that event. It's going to be really cool. And it'll almost be like, we have this All-Star game where everybody's got this heavy lift. we get to go there. Major League Baseball and the Reds will be largely in charge of that event. So we kind of get to let our hair down and sort of just, relax, if you will, a little bit and just enjoy the spectacle of this thing.
It's going to be amazing for folks who haven't been there. You can put, if you had your Google Maps up and you took the outline of Truist Park and put it in Bristol, basically you can put right at 2 Truist Parks inside Bristol. So to give folks an idea of just how massive this place is, they call it the last great Coliseum, and that's really what it looks like. It's a giant modern Coliseum.
It's going to be fun. I cannot wait. So, and by the way, tickets are on sale now. If people haven't bought their tickets, they can go venture up. I think the campgrounds will be open and all that kind of stuff. So you can do a true NASCAR experience, go camp and instead of watching a NASCAR event, you could go, watch a baseball game.
Love it. Braves.com/Speedway Classic. So let's get back to Truist Park here real quick. We've got a lot of cool new spaces, new things at the ballpark.
Yep.
You got the bullpen, the outfield market, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Park, which I think is especially cool.
Yes.
Some expansion in the Chop House. So just as fans come into the ballpark for the first time in 2025, what can they expect to see around here?
Well, we opened in 2017, as everybody knows, and despite the fact that we're under 10 years old in this ballpark, we still want to make sure we're investing and continuing to improve the experience here. By the way, got rated as the #1 fan experience in all of Major League Baseball. Really proud of that. But we still want to continue to innovate and invest in this. And so, like we do every offseason, we're doing a number of projects to do just that. This offseason was a little heavier, and obviously in anticipation of the All-Star Game. We added a couple of projects that probably we wouldn't have otherwise added. We accelerated some things. And I think we've got some really cool things for fans as they're first coming in. If you're not familiar with that, as you've mentioned, some of the projects are, we've taken, the easiest way to look at this is we've taken the kids area and we've expanded it by about 3 times. There's about half our crowd that comes with kids. And so family experience is really, really important. We want to try to make sure that there's a dynamic experience for our kids. And, there's not, especially at the younger age, they don't just sit still for 9 innings and watch a baseball game. So giving them something to do is really important. We partnered with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and created a new space, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Park, which will have a wiffle ball field and a whole lot of other things that will be part of that. It's located just outside of the left field gate, in between the third base and left field gate. And then the outfield where the sandlot was located, which was the previous version of our kids' space, we've turned into an outfield market, so featuring a lot more food and beverage options available for our fans. So as you're coming in the Chop House gate, for example, make a quick right, and there'll be 6 or 7 stands with all kinds of unique food and beverage offerings for you, some of which will be some of the fun food and beverage from in the marketplace. So we've got deals with Taqueria Tsunami, the NFA burger, which has gotten sort of an Atlanta acclaim, will be featured here now, as well as a whole bunch of other things, so some dessert options and new specialty drink options, etc. So a lot of fun things there. And then we've also created an expansion of the Chop House seats. So those we have more Chop House seats than we've ever had before. And then similarly in right field, we created this thing called the Pen, which is like a unique private amenity space that's for those right field seats now. It's an all-inclusive space. We'll actually do some group sales in that space, but otherwise we sold them as a season ticket. And then there's a number of other offerings and improvements throughout the ballpark. One of the biggest things that you'll see visually is we've added an entire new level of LED fascia. So as you're looking at sitting in your stands, looking out to the field, you'll be able to see all kinds of new ways where we can create excitement with some of the LED product. The actual video board itself is brand new. It's the same size, but it's a brand new video board. Hate the fact that we have to replace these every so often, but this is the year that we had to do that. So we have some of that going on. And then I think maybe saving last, but certainly not least, is we wanted to try to improve the way we feature our retired numbers and the greats that have played in uniform for the Atlanta Braves. So we've redone the way that we've featured those, and excited for fans when they come here to see that. They're
beautiful. They look great. When the first one went up, I was In Sung Kim and I were looking at it through one of the conference rooms upstairs, and I told him, like, man, that's perfect. Yeah. That it's just beautiful. It's a wonderful, and it's a great way to honor and tribute.
These are the greats that have ever worn our uniform, and so we should rightfully pay them homage and give them as much credit as we possibly can. And as you know, we like to incorporate alumni into a lot of the things that we do, which we'll, of course, do during the course of this season and even the All-Star Game. We, in fact, back to the All-Star Game, we've got an event where we'll feature some of those guys hitting home runs and things like that. Some stuff yet to be announced, but some pretty cool things happening.
And the Battery, too. There's going to be new things. I actually was just looking at the new LED board above Good Game this morning, and it looks awesome. It was my first time seeing it in action. The Battery, the ballpark, everything continues to evolve, and I think it's such a tribute to the work that you and Mike and Terry and everybody have done on our leadership team that the Battery Atlanta, Truist Park, seemingly every professional sports team in North America and a lot of college athletics teams and then teams from abroad as well are coming here to see what you guys have done to try to replicate it. So how much pride do you guys take in that, being industry leader?
A lot. I mean, obviously, we head down and focus in on trying to make it better each and every day. You've mentioned a couple of things that we're doing. We've got the Shake Shack that's coming in. We're trading out some of the retail establishments that we can maybe alter even, the mix and continue to try to improve those things. The office space is fully leased out. By the time this comes out, there's other projects that we'll have out there. So there's a lot of things that are going on that make the Battery really special. We do get some acknowledgement from around the league, around the country, around the world even, about what the Battery has represented as an innovative concept for sports venues. No longer are sports venues really looking at a monolithic wall and everything is inwardly looking. Now, I think any sports venue that is being designed today has a little bit of the concept of a Battery, which is, what can you do outside the walls of the sports venue, in our case, a ballpark, and how can you make that great? And obviously, we think we've got a pretty good one to showcase and have them come study.
It's a truly special place and a special atmosphere, not just to work here, but to be here. I lived here for 7 years until the wife and I, the family expanded and we had to get a house out in the burbs. But
someday your kid will be living here, right?
If my daughter Stevie comes out here, I would love for her to live here because her dad had the best 7 years living here.
That's right.
It was the best. So, okay, we've talked about all the different things coming up this year, but I've left out one small little tiny thing. We have a really good baseball team still, just in case people hadn't thought about that in a minute. I honestly believe, and again, as a TBS kid, grew up on the 90s teams. Obviously, we know, or folks of my generation know, 14 straight divisions, all that, the World Series championship. Mm-hmm. It was an amazing era. I kind of feel like now we're kind of in a golden era that maybe is, just as my opinion, starting to surpass that one a little bit. This is an amazing era of Braves baseball that we are currently in. This team has the ability they're a contender, and they're a contender every year. And I feel like in certain camps, I notice it here in the office when I'm in camp in Northport talking with people, there's a buzz that develops around teams. I remember in 23 in particular, there were a lot of us in camp going, I think there's something here. There's something that's really special about this team, and that was a historically great team. That's starting again, I think, with this team. This pitching staff in particular looks amazing. So how excited are you to watch these guys get on the field again this year?
Well, I think you touched on it, but last year I remember breaking camp, and we had that feeling. You broke camp last year and you said, this team has the chance to win the World Series. A lot of teams might say that, but do they really, really believe it? And I think we really believed it last year. And obviously, we had some tough luck along the way. The amount of injuries, I'm not making excuses. Alex doesn't make excuses, but we had a lot of things that felt like they were not going our way last year. And despite that all, by the way, we still amazingly made the postseason. Took us a long time. Took us to the very, very last game of extra day, but that's all right. We still got there, and it's fun to say that we've been in the postseason every year. We've been here at Truist Park. I can tell you this, no other, especially new sports venue, but certainly many other teams can't say that they've got the success of their team as a fan of their team that we have had. So what you had on display last year was perseverance. And you also had, I think, the unbelievable job, and I know it gets talked about probably not enough, that Alex Anthopoulos and his entire team deserve credit for in in trying to find replacements, making moves in order to just keep that next guy up rolling. And that was full on display last year. As we're breaking camp this year, I certainly believe we all feel like we have the team that can win the World Series again. As we saw from last year and any of the other successful years that you've had and perhaps made the postseason, the ball has to bounce the right way every now and then, and you have to have maybe not only that perseverance and not only that strength of team and the great players that we certainly have, but you have to have a little bit of luck along the way, maybe a little bit of that happening. So we hope that we have that. Obviously when we were supposed to host the All-Star in 21, we won the World Series that year. So maybe it has something to do with All-Star Game, and maybe that's in the air this year again with 25. And I would just say we are incredibly enthusiastic and excited. There's probably a better word that I can use here to describe the feeling that we have towards this team. These are phenomenal players, and we've had some success with each and every one of them at their positions. And I really like some of the moves, and including recently, as we're taping this, including of recent today, that we're making to continue to try to make our team a little bit better. So fun to watch Alex do what he's doing, and can't wait for the season to begin here shortly.
We can't wait. Well, Derek, again, I know you're very busy, so we thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, I appreciate all that you and your team does to bring a fun resource to our fans. This is fun to listen to every time, so I'm excited to get the chance to sit in the chair this week, and I hope you'll have me back someday.
Oh, we'd love to. Thank you, Derek.